Yes, I remember the day well, when Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights leader, was assassinated on April 4th, 1968. And yesterday, the commemoration of 50 years since his death, that got me to thinking, not only about the day, also about the gun, and also about what has happened since then. But more than that, I always want to know more about the men who make a difference, the women who change the world. And perhaps that's something we can learn about as we go a little bit into the life of the man, Martin, the man, also the mentor, and the entrepreneur. That's right. Today on The Christian Entrepreneur, on the Jesus Entrepreneur program, we'd like to talk about some of the things you as a business leader can learn from the man, from the mentor, and of course, from the entrepreneur. That's going to happen right now. Dan Houston once again for the Jesus Entrepreneur, a program from the Christian Entrepreneur Network, and we are inviting you to join us on the network. And you can check us out. We're putting that new website up now. In fact, it still might be a little bit under construction, but tcentrepreneur.org, tcentrepreneur.org, and hopefully you'll be in touch with me. There are a variety of ways that in my work as a business performance coach, oftentimes someone has asked me, okay, what are you all about? Can you make it kind of short and concise in terms of your coaching? Well, I've said this. Well, I think I'm the man for marketing, modern media, mentoring, and the meaning of life. I think what made me very effective is hopefully my background in teaching and in broadcasting and missionary work allowed me to walk into businesses from around the world, and I had been around the world, and I knew something about, first of all, marketing. And I learned my marketing as a missionary, and about modern media as a broadcaster. And then people have taught me about the social media out there, people much younger than me. Mentoring and coaching is something I've been doing all my life, and I'm a business performance coach. But all of that has to be framed with the meaning of life, and that is found in Jesus, the entrepreneur. And from that, all things flow and all things go, and they return to Him again. And so with that understanding, we try and walk into the world and create some real value and help and some instruction by saying, when it comes to getting your message out there, marketing, when it comes to understanding how to use the media, we can help you do that. If you just need some mentoring, some coaching on all of the various business strategies that I can help you think about, I'm very present, I listen, and I have a lot of new ideas that'll help you, I believe. And so I would just simply raise my hand and say, I would love to audition as your coach for your class, your company, your organization. Again, my name is Stan Houston. You can Google me and find out a lot more about me. I think I'm the only Stan Houston around. I think I come up number 1 on Google. And then you can find out more about me as you listen to some of the other programs. This is my way of kind of showing you who I am and what I do. And I'm grateful that you take some time to listen to my story. But hopefully today's story is going to be short and to the point. We had a rather lengthy time yesterday, and that was very helpful and very useful as we found out more and more about your personal vision and how that is very, very valuable. No, it's not sound and fluff and feathers. It is good stuff that will help you be a better and more profitable entrepreneur. As someone said, if you don't know what your vision is, that means when you get up in the morning, you don't really know what to do. And having the vision, having the mission, knowing what life is all about and business is all about will help you know what you need to do tomorrow morning. So give that some thought and go back and listen once again to Hugh Welchel as he describes your personal vision. And of course, then yesterday, and it was noted in most of the news within the United States that this was the day 50 years ago when Martin Luther King was assassinated, and it was a terrible tragedy. And so to many of you, I sent out a note about that, and I'd like to answer some of those questions that came up, and perhaps just make a point or two about how this story, perhaps this memory, can be helpful to you, really practically helpful to you as a business entrepreneur. Let's see if we can make that happen. First of all, Martin, the man. Well, there's a great deal of controversy about him. It is interesting to note that there were many tributes to the man, and there were a number of people who, after 50 years, still don't like him, think he was fraudulent. They point out the fact that he had less than an ideal family life. He was probably not faithful in his marriage, and that the man was, to use their expression, deeply flawed. Now, don't you like that expression? Deeply flawed. And we say it kind of as a pejorative. Well, yes, he was accomplished this, he did this, he was talented, but he or she was deeply flawed. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, obviously has accomplished a great deal of things, but for many, many people, his personality and the way he does things, he's deeply flawed. And oftentimes, I find people, when they're talking about people of achievement and of accomplishment, but then they'll come in and say, but in many ways they were deeply flawed. Now, here's my point to you. This will help you better understand yourself and your mission in life, entrepreneur. All of you who are not deeply flawed, raise your hand. Those of you who really have your act together, you're kind of paragons of virtue, you haven't made too many mistakes, you've had hardly any failures in life, you really have your act together. Why, Martin Luther King might be deeply flawed, and Donald Trump might be deeply flawed, and boy, my boss is deeply flawed, but me, I'm kind of okay. Obviously, I think you sense my sarcasm. The point I want to make is when people say, someone is deeply flawed, yes, and so are you. We all are. Some more than others, some profoundly more than others. And, of course, there are those rare souls, perhaps like Billy Graham or Mother Teresa, who is less deeply flawed. But isn't it ironic to know that those people who are most saintly are oftentimes the ones who claim to be less than saintly? St. Paul says, I'm a miserable guy. There's just so much about me that goes wrong. There's just so much about me that I wish did not happen and be and with me. So can I first of all say the first lesson for today is to say a man is deeply flawed means they're part of the human race, and it is deeply flawed individuals who oftentimes achieve some of the deepest and most profound accomplishments. That's the first lesson you need to learn. And you see, part of the reason I do this is a little bit of philosophy and theology. Someone has said, well, Stan, stick to the business stuff. Let me tell you something. What I have discovered is we can do that, and we will do that, and it will be very practical, and it will be things that we take from all of the business literature and all the stuff we learn because we study a lot and read a lot. But what I have discovered is the most successful entrepreneurs are oftentimes people who don't read business books. 2 reasons. One guy said this, the business books are what everybody else is reading. What good does it do me to know what everybody else knows? I need to know things that they don't know. Good point. Well, I'm reading all of the latest business books. Well, everybody else is reading all of the latest business books, so you all know the same things. What real advantage is that? And another gentleman said, Stan, I learn business, first of all, by my mentor. Secondly, I learn about business in theology and philosophy and in biography. I study the lives of great men and women, and that's where I learn about business. Isn't that an interesting point of view? That's where I learn about business. Just let that sit on your head for a while. So the man was deeply flawed, but we can learn from him and the things he did. The other thing that I wanted to mention is mentoring. What I'm going to encourage you to do is to discover that Martin Luther King Jr., and please keep in mind, it is the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He had a Ph.D. He was brilliant. He died at the age of 39 with a mountain load of accomplishments. He was 39. He'd be 90 years old going on now. And he was also a minister. And the Bible and his relationship to his Baptist faith, his Christian faith, was vital to who he was. He made no bones about it. His entire stuff was grounded in his father, who was a minister, his teaching, which was coming out of Spirit-led stuff, and, of course, the very ideas that he learned came from Spirit-ledness, that type of stuff. And, going on, one of the men who taught him was a gentleman named Howard Thurman. Now, Howard Thurman. And again, I wish this was kind of a video so I could write it out for you. Thurman. One of his sayings is part of a plaque on my wall. Somebody once asked him, he said, what should we do with our lives? What should we be? You know, that classic question. What should I be when I grow up? What should I do? You're a student right now, graduating from school, going out into a new career or a career change. You say, what should I do? And Howard Thurman had one of the most wonderful answers in the world. Here it was. Do this. Okay, here it goes. Discover what makes you become fully alive. What is it in life and business and work makes you feel fully alive? Discover that, and then do that. Fully alive. And I will tell you that the vast majority of people are caught in life and businesses and careers that do none of those things. What makes you become fully alive? Jesus said, I've come that you might have life, abundant life, overflowing, full up. And he said, find out what that is and go do it. So that was Martin, the man, and the mentor. And now may I talk a little bit about the entrepreneur. See, this is where you begin to discover there are some good things you can learn by just watching what people do. There's an incredible book written by a man named Joseph Rosenblum. Again, I wish I could write it out for you. Joseph Rosenblum, and it was called The Last 39 Hours of Martin Luther King's Life, and it literally describes what happened on that day and time in Memphis, Tennessee, when he came to help lead a sanitation worker strike for better justice and equality and wages. And he spoke, and that's where he was, and there was a meeting the night before in which he almost, it seemed, predicted what might happen. It was almost like he had a sense that he might die. And at a very inexpensive motel he was staying, and the next day after his talk, he was up on the balcony of the motel, and a guy with a Remington .30-06 pump-action deer rifle put a bullet in his head. I remember that. They held the rifle up that they found that the murderer had left, and I looked at it, and my eyes got wide, and my jaw dropped. Because that was the very same rifle that my dear father-in-law, who was a very fine hunter, a pastor, one of the finest men I've ever met, and he had taught me as a young man how to be a hunter. Now, I never was a very good one. I really wasn't into it that much. He was raised that way and was very good at it, and for him, getting a deer in the fall meant you had more meat to eat in the winter. And that was his one luxury. He bought himself a fine hunting rifle. And I had seen what that powerful rifle had done when he had a well-placed shot that took down a big deer, even a bear. And then I realized that Dr. Martin Luther King was hit at close distance from that rifle, and I knew what had happened to him, and it moved me deeply to tears. That was there, and that was part of the story. But here's the way we go, and this is the way I want to kind of end it up. When he gave the I Have a Dream speech, when he actually gave that speech in 63, and when he gave his final speech in 68, he spoke without notes. Hard to believe. You see, here, entrepreneur is the deal. The entrepreneur is well-informed, they're thoughtful, they're well-read, they are well-connected, they are full of it. And it comes out of their heart, mind, and spirit. Martin Luther King was an eloquent man, a very well-educated man. But the reason he spoke so well is why you as an entrepreneur need to be well-educated, thoughtful, well-read, because you always have to be prepared to speak what you believe in. And he could do that. I often say, I want you to be so full of it and so well-read and so thoughtful that if you go to your service club and the speaker doesn't show up and they need someone to take a 20-minute talk, you can talk. You can speak. You can bring value. You could have an inspiring talk right off the cuff, right off the top of your head, because you are full of the good things of God, business, commerce, relationships, and the meaning of life. That's one of the lessons that we will learn. One of many from Martin the entrepreneur, but he was a man well prepared to speak his mind, make his presentation, make his point, and bring value and inspiration and encouragement to others. That he could do. And my friends, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to do that too. I'm Stan Houston. This is Radio on the Edge. This is the Jesus Entrepreneur. Well, I meant to go shorter, but I went longer. I hope that was okay. Again, I'm Stan Houston for Radio on the Edge, the Jesus Entrepreneur. Reach out to me at radioedge77@gmail.com, radioedge77@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you, and raise your hand and tell me how I can help you. If you have any questions, let me know. All the best and blessings to you, and think about what we've talked about today, and if you find some value, let me know. But more importantly than that, tell others. All the best.